Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf has been accused of treating hundreds of thousands of Scots with complete contempt. This is with his calls to eradicate Toryism from Scotland. And of course, he doesn't just mean the politicians. It's not just MPs, MSPs and councillors he wants shot of. He wants shot of even Tory ideas, Tory values. This means eradicating all Tories. It is the politics of hate. It is the politics of an extremist organisation. And he is being called out on it. And we've done videos on this in the past. But Douglas Ross is now saying that this is just sheer contempt for 700,000 Scots who voted Tory in the last election. He's saying, does he really, really want to get rid of about 15% of the population of Scotland simply because he disagrees with their politics? If so, then Humza Yousaf is, of course, a very dangerous extremist. But we know that, don't we? He is on so many different fronts for the politics he's pushing. But we'll take a quick look at this. I'm not going to go into too much depth on it, but it is worth a glance at because we all know that Douglas Ross is entirely correct in this case. So, here goes. So, Humza Yousaf treating hundreds of thousands of Scots with open contempt due to his nasty general election campaign. Do excuse me, I seem to have a little bit of a throat on today, so if I sound a bit rough or a bit changed, do apologise. The First Minister was blasted by Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross over showing contempt for the almost 700,000 Scots who voted for the Conservatives at the last election, as he insisted this would damage him at the ballot box. It will, because there's even people within his own party who disagree with this. Pete Wishart, for example, is saying, no, it's very damaging. You cannot be seen to be hating on voters. And that's what he's doing. You can disagree with your opposition's policies and politics. Perfectly acceptable. That's cut and thrust of party political, machinations within the political system. That's absolutely fine. You can disagree with what they're doing or saying or attempting. But to actually attack the individuals who do the voting, what he's saying is that the 700,000 Scots, to him, are contemptible. Why does he want to lead a country filled with so many contemptible people? It's very wrong, isn't it? It's very wrong. It's a very bad optic, I think. And I think, for once, Pete Wishart is right. It's not often you say that, but he is right in this case. Humza Yousaf has been accused of treating hundreds of thousands of Scots with open contempt over his calls to make Scotland Tory-free. And he has been warned that this will damage the SNP at the ballot box, as voters will be repelled by his comments. Now, obviously, the wild-eyed loons who vote for the SNP probably won't care too much. But there will be people who kind of don't usually vote, but who will be sickened by these comments. And who will say, actually, no, this is the comment of hate. I am not having this. I do not want anyone who represents a party that is inducing hate to have a seat. And they will go out and they will actively vote against it. The First Minister has already split his party due to his campaign slogan with veteran MP Pete Wishart, as we mentioned, indicating he will not be using it. And indeed, he's not the only one. He's the most sort of vocal of it, but there are others that have come out and said that they won't. His Perthshire seat is a straight fight between the SNP and the Scottish Tories, and he insists his campaign would be overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, not gutter politics, basically. He said, at last Westminster election, my Conservative opponent secured almost 20,000 votes in Perth and North Perthshire, and everybody who voted for the Conservatives are entitled to their view and for their political decision to be respected. Everyone has a right to a political representation and to seek the best way for their view to be promoted. My campaign, he says, will be overwhelmingly positive in its tone and delivery. And actually, for once, not only do I agree with Pete Wishart, but I'm actually going to tip hat and give him a nod of respect on that. And I think that is something that it's grown up and it's adult. And you don't get a lot of that from anyone in the SNP. There's very few. Fergus, for example, he does. I've got to be honest, even Kate Forbes does. But there's not many of them. Most of them are filled with hate and bile, aren't they? However, the Tories pointed out that Mr. Wishart had himself used the phrase only 8 days previously when he said he spent his birthday wandering around the streets of the Bridge of Erne in subaltern conditions trying to make my country Tory-free. As a result, his rival says he has no credibility, posing of a man of integrity. Well, I think he said it because it was the sort of thing he was expected to say at the time, and I think he's ruminated, perhaps to some degree, on what he said, realised it was wrong, and has walked it back. And if he has walked it back, give him that. That's fair enough. The Scottish Tories also hit out at the First Minister, doubling down on his comments at the SNP summit held in Perth at the weekend, in front of about 30 people. If anyone saw it, there weren't many there. Outside of the policy wonks and the press, it was a very, very low attended event. Man and his dog kind of thing. Leader Douglas Ross issued a rallying call to voters in constituencies where there is a straight fight between them and the Nats. And he insisted that they should unite behind the candidates if they were disgusted by Mr. Yousaf's campaigning. As I say, there's people within the SNP who don't like this. They think it's extremist, too far, hate-filled. And it is one of the reasons, one of the many, many reasons why the SNP are losing voters, losing backing, losing financial support, and are on a downward trend. They're going to take a beating at the next election. They know it. And the reason is they had Continuity Sturgeon. She was a figure of hate. She was a hate-filled little dictator. And they've brought in someone else as Continuity Sturgeon, who is also equally filled with hate and loathing for people. Ross was going on. He said, these insulting comments demonstrate the SNP's open contempt for the almost 700,000 Scots who voted Tory at the last election. Humza Yousaf's divisive rhetoric shows why we are asking pro-UK voters to vote together for the Scottish Conservatives. If we unite once more, we can beat the SNP and end their campaign to divide Scotland for good. Now, I always maintain, when it comes to money, be slightly right of centre, use a bit of common sense, don't waste it. But when it comes to people, be slightly left of centre and have a little bit of compassion. And I don't think you can go far wrong with that. But whilst I am generally fearful of the left and would always vote slightly right if I can, simply because it's the sensible policies, I've got to say, if you're in a constituency where the SNP are in and holding the seat and Labour are the challenger, I say to Tories in that ward, vote Labour. Not because you want a Labour candidate, not because you want a Labour representative, but because you don't want the SNP. And I will say to Labour voters in a ward or in a constituency where the Tories are second, the Tories are going to challenge the SNP, hold your nose again, vote Tory. It's for one election only. After that, go back to where you are. Tactical voting for one election, get the SNP out, and they will be bankrupted. You will help change Scotland for the better. One election. Hold everyone, whoever the party, whoever's in second in your constituency, if it's an SNP constituency, vote for them. Regardless of your political leanings, vote for who's second. Get the SNP out. Coming up. We've all seen how destructive the SNP are and continue to be. It is time they were thrown out, and not just lost an election, but were eviscerated, embarrassed, humiliated, broken upon the wheel, never to rise again. No Phoenix Party, simply eradicated, not just from Scottish politics, but from Scottish history. They're an organisation of hate, an organisation of hopelessness, an organisation dedicated to making people poverty-stricken and miserable. That is their final goal, and they're doing a fine job in achieving it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll stop there. You have been marvellous. I'm coming up, and I will move on to the next video. Cheers. Bye.